Anne Turner is being interviewed for the Heritage Committee by Vince Piccolo and Helen Ballard. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, Helen and Vince.
Morning,
Tell us
Anne.
about when you first joined the club, Anne.
Gee, it's so long ago I can't remember. No, that's not really true. It's 63 years I've been a member. I joined in 61 at the age of 14. So.
And your parents were members of the golf club?
Yes, Mum and Dad, they've been members I think since just after the war. Enjoyed coming to the club and the friends that they made,
and your parents had quite a big sporting background, didn't they?
Oh yes. Mum was represented Australia in the Australian women's tennis team in 1938. Went overseas with Nell Hopman, Nancy Bolton, a member here, many-time champion, and Thelma Coyne. And my mother, yes, at 4. And the manager was Harold Walker, whose daughter Lynette Sheridan became a member. Mum proposed her as a member here, and she was a delightful person. She was a journalist, no family, but she wrote a bit about my experiences playing pennant and said I was a very dogged match player. And then she came and apologised to me for using the word dogged and saying, I hope you don't feel insulted by my use of the word dogged, but I felt it was quite a compliment and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lovely thing to say, so yes, it was really good.
And your father was on the committee at the golf club?
Oh yes, Dad was heavily involved. He was on the committee I think for about 16 years, yeah, 16, 17 years. And he was involved with the selling of the land in Kilby Road when we had to build a new clubhouse, and he was secretary, captain, president. He was quite involved with the club.
And
he became a life member. Great friends with Alan Day and Ivan Tindley and Charles Crompton. Yeah.
So, and just give us a little bit of history of your earlier years at the club.
Yeah. It was really enjoyable as a child. You know, there was a social scene of the young men, particularly around the pro shop. When I first joined at 14, I needed to have lessons, so my parents organised for me to have lessons with Billy Smith, and I didn't even know how to swing the club, but he just told me, just turn your shoulders and don't dip, and that's what I stick to this day. I get up there and I say, just turn and don't dip. And so when I went out, age of 14, needed to get a handicap, needed to put in 3 stroke rounds. The first stroke round I had 198, then I think I had 146 and 142, so I started off on a maximum of 36, and then after that, so that was the first year, get the handicap. And the next year, Billy Smith organised for me to play in a mixed event with, his name, Dylan and Newton Turner. And Newton was on a handicap of 2 and I was on 36, and I didn't play very well, but then after that, we subsequently won a few mixed events. The first one was the, I think it's the one with the flower net on the top of it, the carry-on mixed foursomes, Canadian foursomes, and the members thought, wasn't it nice that such young people should win that trophy? But after we'd won a couple of more it was still nice, but it's nice to see the youngies winning, was what they were saying, which is what we do now. And I think that's lovely to encourage the young people. It's really nice.
So, you mentioned Newton Turner.
Mm-hmm.
Just give us a little bit of detail.
A bit more about Newton Turner. Well, then...
he was club champion.
He was
on the board for a number of years.
Yes.
Treasurer of the club.
Treasurer, yes.
So how did you go about meeting him?
Well, after playing in the mix, then we met socially at the local Black and Blue dance. It was in Baldwin Road, and then we played in lots of mixed, and then subsequently we married in 1970 and had our reception in the old clubhouse before it was pulled down. And he won lots of things. I think he's won the Charles Crompton and the Gars Gertchley, and I don't know, besides being club champion 3 times, he's had a couple of holes in one. Oh yes, and I discovered the other day that he was runner-up in the Caddies Championship in 1961, which I thought was really quite interesting.
Very
So
good.
there would have been lots of young, it would be sort of similar to the junior championships that they have now, but because all the juniors then were virtually caddies, it was described as Caddies Championship, and I've got an engraved silver trophy at home that with the inscription on it saying what it was for, which is really lovely.
So you won several events with Newton.
Yes, we won the Atkinson, we've won President's Day, I think. Oh no, I don't know about President. Yeah, can't remember. We won the Neil Davey. Can't remember anything else. I know that what was exciting, was really nice for Newton, was when he and his son, our son Richard, and Peter Rowley and Roland Williams, they represented Kew in the Barwon Heads Plate, and they subsequently won it. And it was really nice for a father-son to be part of a team to go from Kew to win the plate. So that was fantastic. I can't remember what year that was, but yes.
So just to go back to your early golfing career, and you played with your mother, or not with your mother, but you and your mother had a rare mother and daughter
Oh,
moment
that was fantastic.
in 1964.
Yeah, that was fantastic. To see the bit in the paper, which I've kept, is to see my mother winning the B division and I won C division. I think I was on 35 or something like that on the same day. Yeah, but then she died when I was 20, so there was no other comparisons. And she also won the Fairholme Cup. Which one's the Fairholme? Might be that one. Is it that one? That's McCutcheon. No, the Fairholme's the big one at the back there. Yep.
So in 1966, you played in the Victorian Junior Championships at Greenacres.
Yes, yes, that's when we get the antique photos that we have here. These photos were at the time that I played in these things. There must have been several different occasions because there's different outfits, but this one's at Greenacres, and that's hitting out of the bunker that's on the left of the short par 3 leading up to the clubhouse. That's the 9th green. Yeah. And it looks a bit of a strange sort of photo because the club head of the sand wedge looks rather thick, but it's a whole lump of sand stuck on it. It's quite a good action photo, put out by the Herald and Weekly Times. And this one, that's with Lisa Grimwade and also by the Herald and Weekly Times. You know, that's just an action photo that they need to put in their papers from time to time, but I think both occasions not successfully.
And you played InterVarsity golf too?
Oh yes, that was good. That was sort of fierce. My first one was in Sydney. This is not even a golf memory, but I can remember going up there, and so you have a welcome party in Sydney, and you have a cocktail party, and they have olives and sherry, and I'd never had olives and sherry before that. But we did reasonably well, and it was most enjoyable. And then we came back to Melbourne, and then we went up to Brisbane, and then we came back to Melbourne. And one of the years we hosted, I was actually involved with Melbourne University in organising the one in Melbourne and the clubs that we played at. And one of the clubs we played at was Huntingdale, and I had a 39 on the back 9. I had a big score on the front 9, but the 39 on the back 9 made so that I equalled in the championship. And so because of that, I was sort of experienced in playing. I've got first of all the half blue and then the full blue for golf at uni, and that was a thrill, really. Yes.
So you've had unbelievable success in golf tournaments. So let's just expand a little bit on that.
Bit embarrassing.
No, it's not embarrassing. It's a great achievement.
Well, I
So
suppose.
you've played in almost every, since you became a better golfer.
I'd like to, if you're playing golf, and I was fortunate that my husband supported me with playing golf, because I supported him with his work and he needed to play his golf in the weekend, so it was a shared arrangement. And so I liked to play in all that was available, like I like to play in the VLGU events, the WGV events, and then on occasions didn't play that much touring around Australia playing golf, but I was one time that I was asked by Joan McIntosh. We can talk about Joan McIntosh later, but she was one that she liked to go after prizes, and I'm not saying anything out of school, but lots of people that she liked to go after the prizes. So she said, "Anne, would you partner me in the 4-ball up at Bendigo?" She had friends at Bendigo, so off we tootled, and she was couldn't quite get around, so we in a cart and we tootled around in the cart and we won the 4-ball, didn't we, with Joan? Which was really, and that was a special
You're
moment
handicapping
too.
your golfing skills, I imagine.
Yes. And so that was, I like to play in those things. And then I had my mother-in-law lived in Perth, so I played, and we have reciprocal rights with Nedlands. So I played at Nedlands and won a trophy there, which was nice. Later years I played in the Triple Classic in East Gippsland, which is Orbost, Bairnsdale and Lakes Entrance. I think I've won a couple of little trophies in those, but that's about as far afield as I've gone with the further golf, other than playing pennant and playing in bowls. In foursomes, I can remember very memorable playing with Mary Stenhouse and representing Kew in a foursomes, and we won that, and that was a real thrill. When you win something that's a state-run thing, it has a bit of importance in your mind, and very memorable. And yes, and Mary was a caddy for me in pennant as well, and a good friend. And
Tell us about your pennant days, Anne. You played pennant for 20 years?
a bit more. I think
That's-
I've just counted. I think it was 22 years, but
Well
that's
done.
splitting straws. Yes, and that was, I think, 5 flags, and also very special because there was the first one was the VLGU one, which is the old-fashioned one, and then we have the WGV pennant flag, and then the special one, super special, was the 100 years of pennant. And I think at Kew, I was always in the second team. No, not always in the second team. There were about 3 seasons when I think I played in the first team, but it was a bit hard because they were big hitters in the first team, and I found that a bit hard. I like the second team better because I'm not really a big hitter. Drives about 150 metres, and so I think to say that in playing my matches, because I wasn't such a big hitter, I'd be sort of hitting the second shots and putting pressure on the other person because I'd be up on the green and then they had to try and get up.
You're a very good match
Down the middle
player.
land.
No.
I
That's what
was
I like to call you.
Was down the middle. I was still,
So there's a putter
yeah, the putters.
upright beside you.
This putter belonged to my grandfather. I used that for some stage during my pennant. This one over here is my original putter, and it's got my maiden name engraved on the side of it, Anne Waddell on the side of
Is that made by Billy Smith?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, made by Billy Smith. The clubs in the bag are all Billy Smith, and they're blades. When I started, I had a driver, a 2-wood, it was just a 2-wood, driver, 2-wood, 3, 5, 7, 9, sand iron and putter. And then the gaps came in, the 4, the 6, the 8, the 4-wood were later additions, so you started with those and moved on. I played with them just recently. They don't seem to go as well as the more recent models.
You have a notable history with the club championships too, Anne.
Yes,
commencing in 1970,
It's 1970, yes, that was the...
when as Miss Anne Waddell,
Yeah,
and taking time off work.
that's right. I played and I managed to qualify in the bronze event
You lost
and
the
play the matches to the final, and then I lost to Dulcie Kennan on the 14th. So that was, and then I went back to work and didn't partake in the beautiful lunches that we used to have after the championships. I didn't know about that because I hadn't been in it before. So, and then there was, for a little while after that, I also again qualified in the bronze and lost to Mona O'Connor in the final round. And then after that I played in the championships as the handicaps went down. I went down, my lowest ever handicap was 11. I'm now on 27. Anyway, so then I think I was qualified and I was quarterfinalists and semi-finals, but another highlight was I got to the final of the championships and I played Ilsa Troy. She was on a handicap of 8, and at that stage I was on 16, and she beat me on the 16th. I thought I was very
excellent
pleased with
effort,
it. Yes,
excellent.
yes.
So 2023,
Getting back to nowadays,
yes.
I'm in C grade.
Yes.
And I've been runner-up to Diana King in C grade. The first year I played in C grade, and the second year, which was 23, I defeated Sue Bradshaw in the final of the C grade. So I've got to C grade.
Well done.
I think the C grade one's here somewhere.
Yeah, the dish on the end.
The one on the right there. Yes. Yes, and so
And
that's-
culminating, of course, all of these wonderful events that you won, but then you won the Australian Championship.
oh yeah, that's a special one. The Australian Championship one was really special, and this is getting back to Joan McIntosh. There was the Holden teams event, and Holden was sponsoring the Australian Championships. And so to encourage interest, I suppose, amongst all the golf clubs, they set up a competition on one particular Tuesday and said, so you became a team. So Joan McIntosh won C division, Chris Hosking won B division, and I won A division. We became the Q team. So we then played in the Metropolitan District Final, which was also held at Kew, and we won that. And then we went to Spring Valley and we played in the state final and we won that. And then we became the Victorian representatives in the final at Yarra Yarra, which we subsequently won. And so we became Australian champions, which was this little book, which I should just be able to flick over to the. That's the fight. That was when we won at Spring Valley on Friday, the 29th September 1995. By the looks of things, can't find the photo of the winners. Oh, there we are with the winners being presented with our Rose Bowl, the Waterford Crystal Rose Bowls, which were really lovely. Yeah, it was very, very special.
So in 92, Anne, you joined the Associates Committee. Can you just give us an
Yes.
idea of what your responsibilities were, or?
I joined, and Anna Mason was the captain at that time, and she asked me what were my interests, sort of what position I'd like to take on the committee, and I said, oh well, because I've got a science background, I thought, well, maybe a treasurer or a handicapper, because we used to do all of the jobs. We used to manage everything that the management now does, count the money and work out the results and check the cards, and no computers then. Anyway, so those were my choices. Anyway, after a few years, I was on the committee for a total of 6. I was captain for 2 years. My little captain's badge, which I've kept. Do you think I should wear it to the golf club from time to time?
I think so.
Confuse everyone.
Yeah, and sort of when talking about, should I be talking about, I've got lots of things about the early time and the pennant, and there's lots of things There's the handicap cards from, I've got them from 63 to 70, and that was when I started on a handicap at 35. And used to have these cards, and you would take them if you were going to play at another course as proof as this was your handicap, was signed and sealed by the handicapper. You'd ask if you could take them and go to other courses. This is the golf club's book in Associates book, and the season started from went from March till the end of November, keeping aside the school holidays, December, January, February, because it was too hot for women to play. So that was free. There was no competition then. What else was there? Oh, this is the card, the first the carry-on card that we won in 21st of October 1962, Newton and I, with an 88 net 67. Nice. And what's really interesting for
Who was on the cards?
Who was on the cards? Yeah. The people we played with?
No, between, was it a
four
ball,
no, it was
a
the
ball?
Foursomes. No, it was the Canadian foursomes.
Oh,
So, no. Sorry, Vince.
That's
no.
all right.
Yeah, so just for interest for nowadays, when we're talking about the practice fairway, it says on the back of the card in red, it says the practice ground on the course consists of the 1st, 9th, 15th, 16th, 17th and 18th fairways. So could you imagine going and practicing on any of those holes nowadays? I don't think it would even be possible. And what was also interesting in playing match play in those days, in some of these ones that I was in, you didn't receive the full difference of handicap. You received about 3/4, or I can't remember what the fraction was. It was something like that. So on the back of the card, it's got a breakdown of the difference in handicaps and how many strokes you've received. And of course, like today, they've got the ratings. They've got a ratings against stroke and against match play, a different rating, and so you had to work it out. I mean, nowadays you just mark things on your little phone, My Club, and it's all done for you. Yes. It's amazing how some people can't do it now, which is, that's a lot of difference between then and now. And then I was also going to say about some of these other things. I was looking at this the other day. So this is the Women's Golf Victoria's Silver Spoon winner. And it's got KGC engraved on it. And this would be another Silver Spoon winner, which that one's got its date, that's 1999. But there's a bit of difference in size from the first one to the second one. Yeah. Sort of just as time goes by. And then talking about my mother, this is very precious because this is the medal that she won in, I think it was 59 or something like that. And it's all engraved. And so when I subsequently won my 3 medals, I think, I said, I didn't really want another medal, so I gave it back to the club and said I would have my mother's medal, so I probably saved the club $100 or something, whatever it was. But it's very precious because of the sentimentality of it all, and and it's great. And I wish that our members now would play more stroke and get involved in playing all the whole range of golf that's being offered, because you get so much reward, and you're only sort of defeating yourself if you don't play. If you keep on competing, you get some sense of achievement. You can come in and say, oh, I had a net 91 today, but then the next week you go out, you can beat your 91 and have a net 81, and you feel, wow, that's fantastic. You might not have won anything, but you've improved. Anyway, golf can demoralise us at all times.
So
or make you happy or excited.
Tell us about the social side of life at the golf club, because it was quite strong.
Got a little bit of socialising here because I was involved in concerts and
the reviews
that were organised by June McCraw in partnership with Bet Porter, and Marg Price originally started them off. So June, Lorraine Alabon, Sue Beaurepaire, Barb McClure, Margaret Heinemann and Anne Turner. And this was the can that we did, which was good fun. I was in quite a few different. What would happen? We'd put on shows at the pennant dinners after the pennant, and so at the end of the year, the committee would want to have some end of year celebrations. So quite often we would do the pennant dinner show would be held at the end of the year, and then it became the last one was when we had the centenary of Kew in 1994, and we did a really fantastic big show, and that we did to mixed audiences, and there were lots of fun and good laughing and whatever.
The social side of the club in those days was quite strong, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Well, I think it still is.
Yes.
It still is, you know. People. This is a comment that I've heard over my 63 years from everyone that's been on the committee. So I've been through lots of ladies, and they've all been fantastic. And I support all those people that have supported me now, and they're in their 80s and 90s and delightful people. But if they go off the committee and they say, well, so many new faces, there's so many new faces. And if you're not playing golf, you don't meet the new faces. You need to be out there playing occasionally on Thursdays. Some people can only play Thursdays, some people can only play Tuesdays. And I've always liked to play in different groups and meet new people, and I just think that that's nice to sort of mix around and meet other people, and they're all nice people, really all nice people. Yeah. So
going back, you have some memorable characters that you'd know at the clubhouse over all these years, going right back to when you used to come for the roast dinners at when you were a child.
Yes, there were the staff in the beginning. There was Marge Moroney and Mrs. Blackwell, and Ken Moroney was Marge and Mrs. Mullins were in the kitchen, and Mrs. Blackwell used to serve at the tables, and I used to come for Christmas, for Sunday lunch, roast dinners every week with my parents, and my father would go out to play golf, and he'd get his rare roast beef first because he needed to be on routine. And I used to empty out the mustard jars at the end of lunch, which wouldn't be health-wise very good nowadays. And then later on there was Luigi Latanzio, and then of course Yvonne Costa and Adam Harris. Adam was a very gentle sort of man, so there were, and I can remember John Bayliss when I was captain. When I was captain, John, you know, I would go to the Greens Committee meetings and we'd talk about the course. Well, the course was something that was discussed, that was fine, but I used to, from my perspective, was where to place the pins. And it still happens even today, but I think it's changing slowly, even now, is that the pin placements, there was always ladies' pins placements were always easier. And if you play, men's pin placements were more difficult. And I used to say to John, we have maybe a different pin placement sort of but the only time that they were ever harder was the championships. And then because you'd never played them in an ordinary round on a Tuesday, they're even harder still. So that was my experience with John. Was an interesting character with his pipe hanging out of his mouth, and he did a really good job with the coarse kind of grass we had then, because it was all the poa that had to be watered over the summer, and then it made winter, it was more muddy, and sometimes we used to have to carry our clubs or tee up, or it was just not good. Yeah, preferred lies, and sometimes it can still happen, but the Santa Ana is just so much better than it was before. And I really think it's been a good thing to have that done, yes. So, now more memorable people at the golf club, I was going to say about some of the people I knew, and I'll say I knew because I think they've all gone, Ian Rennick was just delightful. He was with the Heritage Committee. But then I was mentioning Lynette Sheridan, who was the journalist. She was a real card. And then there's another lady that I thought of just recently, and I looked in the book Birdies and Billabongs, which was our centenary book, and it mentions that there's a leather-bound book that writes in it about observation of birds. And this lady, Carmen Nixon, who was a connection to my uncle, one of my father's brothers, it was a friend, this lady's name was Carmen Nixon, and she was is it an ornithologist that you are when you study birds? And she used to study all the birds out in the golf course. And then I've started to think, and might be an environmental thing, I've seen a Nankeen night heron in Glass Creek, the beautiful beigey brown, and you used to see a lot of little birds. You're not seeing so many little birds around the golf course. I wonder whether it's the difference with the course from when I played it 63 years ago, and forget about the layout, but we used to have a lot of scrub between the fairways. You couldn't see across the fairways like you can now, and whether that's taken an environment away from those little birds, like even the billabongs, like the billabong between Greenacres and Kew sort of being opened up a bit more, and you can see that it looks much nicer to us, but I don't know whether there's that many birds.
What about the pelicans?
No, there's not. Do we see many pelicans?
No,
now?
but we used to.
Yeah, I know. That's another
4
thing.
or 5 there.
And we
for a
still
number
see
of
the
years.
cormorants on Simpson Lake.
We used to have lots and lots of little blue wrens out on there
Yes.
about the beginning of the 13th, and lots there was a lot of scrub there though, as you said,
Yeah.
and lots of little red birds.
Yes, that's
red,
right.
Red
yeah.
and brown. I
I
don't
was
know
just
what
thinking
they were.
this
Featured.
last night when I was just thinking about talking to you today. Is this? And then that's the difference in the course between then and now. I mean, it was more like, oh no, I'll say this. There was a lady who was a member at Royal Melbourne, and Anne Court, and she came to play Kew. It was like coming to the Botanical Gardens. There's the flowering crabapple down the fifth, on the left of the 5th, and I know that some of the trees we've lost with floods and just with the flux of time, but there was some nice specimen trees dotted around the course. It doesn't, and there's the stand of river gums on the right of the 3rd is magnificent. You balance both, and then I can't remember the chap's name, but there was a man who was a member here. No, maybe Vince, when you interview some of the male members, they might remember. He put name tags on all the different types of eucalypts that we had around the golf course, so you could look. And the eucalypts, when they shed their barks, some of them are beautiful, really beautiful.
The
So
colours magnificent.
we do have a beautiful golf course, and the variety of eucalypts, I think, really gives a lot of its character as well. But that's sort of over the years, memories of the vegetation. So that's Carmen and Lynette and Ian, and I could go on with lots more. I looked at the names of the handicappers here, and Tommy Fuge, Brian Fuge's mother, she was a handicapper, and Bonnie Sidwell donated 3 seats out in the golf course. She was a handicap manager, so lots of memories of different people and they were all lovely. So that's memories of people.
So it's lifelong friendships that's been really important to you, hasn't it?
Yes, and that's what there is now, is to support these people that have supported me for so many years. They're just delightful people, and just lovely to be here. And even some of the men, I don't know the men as well, but because they were friends of Newton's, some of them came and just say, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. They're delightful.
So, 63 years at the club.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen a lot of changes.
Lots of changes. I think lots for the better. I was looking around just in the clubhouse, and when it was first built, it had the grey bricks inside, and it's now with the taken away the bricks and they've painted it all. It looks bright and fresh, and it's a nice environment to come to. It presents very well. There's lots of social things now that I'm by myself, I probably don't come to as many social things. But whenever I do come, people always come up and say hello to me, because if you've been around for yonks, wife would say.
So what has the journey meant to you? The club.
This club has been my family. It's very much been my family. And yeah, the interest, there's still people that show interest. I mean, when I talk about Alan Day, and you think about Libby Day, who's been, she's now a life member. I knew her when she was 5, so I've known the family all those years. Anna Mason, her grandfather used to caddy for him, so you know, and there's there's connections with family there, and then you know, there's just people that are. Oh yes, now getting back to Pennant, I think of Di Crellin, who's Anna Mason's auntie. She and her husband used to come and watch the Pennant matches. You know, people used to come and watch Pennant matches, and friends come and watch Pennant matches from just the general membership. And I think that's lovely that people do that. It's part of belonging to a club and being giving, and so when they do that to you, you do that to them, sort of thing. It's a two-way street, isn't it? Friendships and things. Yeah. And so Di Crellin's got Lou Crellin here now, and she's a member here, and Lou's partner Jane Locke, she used to help with the pennant, help with the teams and the pennant. And lots of people, lots of memories. And Billy Smith used to teach Jane Locke, as he used to teach Jack Newton, and he was a really good pro. And after he left here, he went on, he did private coaching when he retired, and I think he went, at one stage he used to use the driving range at Royal Melbourne and coached down at Royal Melbourne as well. He was very well respected in the professional sphere.
So, in concluding our discussion with you, Anne, what's the membership that you've been here for 63 years, it's quite an achievement. And you look well, and we appreciate you doing this interview.
Thank you, Bess.
I'm not sure if Helen's got more questions.
I was just going to add that Anne, on her handicap now of 27, she's still playing once or twice a week, because she just hits down the middle of the and never gives up. She's in a match, never gives up.
Well, that's a never give up. I can remember one time playing with Ailsa Day, and because this came into my mind the other day, one Saturday when I was playing in the rain with my son in the family day, and going down the middle. But the greens got me, so you do have days when you do 3-putt. Anyway, so I was thinking about playing in the rain, and I can remember having a really, really good round. So like I had something like a 43 for the first 9, and so I went on to the next 9, and I had something like a 45, and everyone was dropping out, and Ailsa said, "I'll come on with you, Anne." So, you know, that's what happens, you know, you're playing with someone in pouring rain. So I was also a very good mudlark, as you would say, and fortunately I don't feel the cold like lots of people do. So,
but this tenacity is probably why you won your school's inter-school golf competition earlier this year.
That was absolutely fantastic, because you know, you get old and you think, you know, these are sort of from the, I suppose, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. So, you know, as you get older, they get a bit leaner, the trophies. And then, so this year, I was able to represent my school in the Inter-Schools Challenge Cup, and it was at Yarra Yarra, and as this Holden Teams event was at Yarra Yarra, I like Yarra Yarra, I like their greens, big wide open fairways. If you go down the middle, you can place your shots wherever you want them. And I managed to have 30 points in our team of 4, including Robin Collier, who was a member here at Kew. We won the Inter-Schools Challenge Cup, which my school hadn't won for 40 years. And the last time they won, Margaret Larkin, who was on the committee at Kew and a pennant player, she was part of the team as well. So it was a real
Well
thrill
done,
to
Anne.
win.
That was
you know.
great.
Well done,
And
Anne.
when you
And-
see people that have won these things that you know so well, you're happy for them. You know, even now when we have our presentation day and a new young member wins someone, not even a new, but someone's won something for the first time, you're so happy for them because it's exciting. It's so exciting. Yeah,
Well done, and a great laugh of golfing at Kew, Anne.
yeah.
Yes,
Thanks,
very
Helen.
good. So
Thanks,
in
Anne.
conclusion, Anne, is there a couple of last words that you'd like to
Last words.
give us?
Well, when I think about the course, I say, be patient with the floods, be patient with the bunkers. They'll be good, they'll be bad. We're not a sandbelt course. Make the most of it. If you've got any things that you don't think right, my philosophy was always make a suggestion to improve, don't complain. That would be my, maybe you should. And so if the bunker's not quite right, sorry, but I noticed such and such a bunker was a bit thin on sand, just tell the management, not the ground staff. The management is there to sort of see all of those things happen. So, and I think the course is good, it's lovely. I'd like to see a bit more variety of trees maybe, but in our ecological environment of global warming, maybe that's not a thing. I don't know. I think the course deservedly should be in the top 100 in Australia because I think that's where it should be.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. That was
Thank you,
wonderful.
Anne.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks, Helen.